Welcome to the Feast Life, where we empower you, the modern homeschool mom, to create a life and homeschool you love. One founded on faith, family, freedom, and fun. I'm your host, Julie Ross, creator of the award-winning homeschool curriculum, A Gentle Feast, and a certified Christian life coach. For more information on today's episode and to access my free gift for you, check out thefeastlife.me. Charlotte Mason once said, "Life should be all living, not a mere tedious passing of time." So on this show, we seek to savor the feast of life. Girl, grab your favorite beverage and pull up a chair. You are welcome at this table. What if everything you believed about college being the only pathway to success was a myth? On today's episode, we're diving into a radical yet refreshing perspective with Hannah Maruyama of Degree. Whether you're a homeschool mom worried about preparing your child for the future or someone just questioning the value of today's higher education system, this episode will leave you empowered and ready to rethink traditional norms. I'm so excited today to introduce you to Hannah Maruyama, who is the founder of Degree, which helps parents and their 16 through 20-year-olds create custom career roadmaps that don't require them to buy college degrees so they can launch their lives. From tech to trades, machine learning developers, midwives, drone pilots, watchmakers, animators, and so on. Any job under the sun. With her husband Ryan, she runs Degree on TikTok, which has over 500,000 followers and over 100 million views. They also have the Degree podcast, where Hannah and Ryan interview Degree people who work at companies like Meta, Dell, Twitch, Nike, Microsoft, and more. She also co-wrote The Degree Way, How to Help Your 16 through 20-year-old Build the Life They Want, which was published in June 2024. Join me on today's episode as we rethink higher education. Hey everyone, welcome to the Feast Life podcast. I'm your host, Julie Ross, and I'm here today with Hannah Maruyama from Degree. Thank you so much for joining us today, Hannah.
Julie, thank you so much for having me on. I have been looking forward to this all week.
Yeah, I'm so excited to introduce you to my audience. I think these homeschool mamas are so going to appreciate our conversation. It's something that I talk to my audience about over and over and over again. Let's just start off with a little bit about you and your background, and then what you all are currently doing now, and then we can dive into some more meaty concepts here.
Sounds good.
So tell me a little bit about you and your background and how you got to start what you guys are doing now.
Sure. So essentially, my story goes back to when I was in high school. I was able to dual enroll. So I actually was homeschooled for the majority of my school
wow.
career. My parents were in the military, so I was homeschooled, which when I say that, a lot of people go, "Oh, that makes sense." And I think I tend
Well,
to
who
agree.
are
I
these
tend to
who are
agree
these
with that.
people? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I do credit a lot of the way that I think and the way that I question things to the freedom that I did have, that my mom was very big on teaching us, questioning everything and making sure, proving things out, asking, is that
Yep.
true? And then testing to see if things are. And that is something I think influenced my career, my academic career later, because that mindset is not something that's actually welcome in
Nope.
academia, which I was soon to find out. And that to
Nope.
me was really where the cracks for me began to appear. So I was able to dual enroll. It's funny, one of the comments that I get most frequently on social media is, "Oh, somebody couldn't get into college." But actually, I did get into college. I got into college when I was 16 years
Yeah.
old, actually. And I got into college when I was 16. And it's not hard to do that because they'll take anybody's money. And so they accepted me at the local university, not a college, it was a university. And I went to this local university. So I was able to, I had clept out of a lot of classes
Okay.
previously. So just testing out is something that they allow you to do in the state of Georgia. And I was able to go to that local university, and I was just taking basic classes. I ended up being there until I believe I was about 18. So I did a year and a half of full time at the university. During that time, I took a lot of classes that I felt were extremely useless, classes that I
Yep.
felt were extremely boring, classes where I wondered about the authority of the person teaching the classes and why I was paying somebody who had never done successfully what they were telling me
Yeah.
was true. and that didn't go over very well. And then I ended up writing something for an economics class that didn't go over well with the professor, which was funny because
Mm.
it was an opinion piece that she didn't like my opinion. And so I took it to the
As long as
paper
your
at the
opinion matches my opinion, then it's okay.
correct. That experience was actually like having a bucket of cold water thrown over me because
Mm.
it was very shocking to me because I went in and I asked her why she had given me such a poor grade, and she said, "We you just I just don't like what you said." I'm sorry, it's an opinion. What if that's not part of the grading? No
Yes.
syntax,
Right.
no formatting, no nothing. It was just the fact she didn't like what I said. And so I took
Mm.
that piece to the paper on the college campus, and they actually ended up hiring me as the youngest paid columnist that they
That's
had at the university
amazing.
paper ever. Yeah, so that was my college experience.
So
So when I
basically,
talk
like
about
you're Rory
this,
Gilmore.
oh yes, except for I didn't have rich grandparents to send me to Yale.
Dang.
And truthfully, too, to be perfectly honest, not to minimize, I probably couldn't have got, I don't think I would have been able to get into Yale with my test scores. But that said, it was very much, and I remember clearly the minute I decided to drop out, I was sitting in a sociology, and actually, we don't even say dropout, we say breakout,
I
because
like
that's
that.
what I did. I didn't waste my time. I didn't waste any more money doing something I didn't think had a lot of use for me. I was sitting in a sociology class with a professor that was truthfully insufferable, and I was just going, and I'm sitting here, I got the midterm and I look at the questions, and the questions are all asking me things that the correct answers to, the answers that I need to get the good grade on the
Right.
test, were questions that I didn't agree with and they were not
Yep.
factual. And I just went, what am I doing here? And so I ripped the midterm in half and I threw it in the
Oh,
trash and I walked out of the classroom. That
wow.
was how I
That's a
left.
very dramatic exit.
And and I stole a book of Longfellow poetry from the library. I've since paid for it, but that was what I did because I felt like I wanted to leave something valuable. And so I left with
I
a
love that
book of
so much.
Longfellow
Oh my
poetry
gosh,
to
that's
remember my
so
time there.
cool. It's funny because
Yeah.
that totally reminds me of an experience I had. It was my freshman world history class. So I was a history minor, and the final exam blue book question, which I don't know if they still have those because this was like before the internet. So you gotta handwrite your answer. And the question was, how has education not changed society? And I was so mad because I was an education major and firmly believed my whole life that education does change society. So I wrote my whole paper on how education had changed society. Totally freaked out that I was going to fail this class because of that exam, not answering the actual question. And ended up getting a good grade. I was like, okay, cool. And then several years later, my roommate and I are hanging out, and she started dating this guy, and he's telling me what he does, and he's a teacher's assistant for this history class. And I was like, oh my gosh, I took
Hmm.
that class. I was so mad because of the essay question. And I told him what I did. He was like, that was you? He's like, I graded your paper. And I was like, my gosh, this girl has some spunk to like stand up to this guy. So I was
Oh
blessed that I
man.
got a cool TA that graded my paper and liked my opinion, unlike your teacher.
That's a good example of how the rule breakers always win, I think. Yep.
Thank
It,
you.
it's a good phenomena in society that we see that rewarded, and we're starting to see that more and more too. I think as the narrative of you have to do all these things, you have to check all these boxes
Mhm.
just gets weaker and weaker every day. And it's nice to see too, especially for homeschooling parents. I hope that they feel that they are part of a movement where they are able to customize their children's education, what they teach them, how they teach them, and that when they do that, they get outsized results because they're not checking all the boxes that everybody else says that they have to. And one of the
Yes.
things too, I always want to talk about, and so I'll let me nutshell. Sorry, I'm off track of your initial
That's
question.
okay.
So
I have
what I will say
ADHD,
too,
so I can follow your rabbit trail. We'll go back. It's all good.
perfect. My professional experience then after that was a series. I worked up so many jobs. I worked as a nonprofit fundraiser. I worked as an investigative journalist. And that was a job that said it required a degree that obviously did not because they hired
Yeah.
me. And that was a recurring theme too, where that was
Mm,
something else I started to see a pattern of. I said, wait a minute, I see these requirements. And then I would just apply for the job and then I would get the job and I would go, okay, so that wasn't real. It was never
yeah.
real. And those little points started to add up over time until much, much later. Actually, my husband Ryan and I are from Hawaii, actually. So Ryan is
Okay.
Hawaiian and he's from Hawaii, and he was a firefighter at the time, and we were living in Hawaii. He was a firefighter, and he had been accepted, very competitive application process for the Honolulu Fire Department. They have thousands of people that apply, and they only take about 50, and he made it through that. I'm very proud of him. So he made it
Yeah,
through
that's
those
awesome.
cuts. Yeah, it was a big deal. And at the time, I was working at a call center, actually in tourism. So I was working in activity sales, helicopter
Yeah.
tours, to luau's, that type of thing. And COVID happened. So I
Yeah.
remember that day very distinctly because I was working this job. I think I was making about I was making about $28,000 a year commission. So it was like a low flat rate and then commission on top of that. And I'm working this job. And while I was there too, I was able to turn that, it was a 5 day work week job into a 4 day work week because of the
Mm.
shifts. And
Yeah.
the team liked that idea because a lot of people were commuting from further away. So I was able to like say, hey, I propose this. I think people are going to get more productive if we do this. And then we
Wow,
did. And
that's cool.
so it worked. And so
Yeah.
I had just secured that, which was really good because I was also running a business as well. And
Okay.
so that was working really well. So that had just happened. And then I remember my supervisor came and tapped me on the shoulder and she said, hey, you need to pack up your stuff and go and just don't say anything, just go. And I was like, okay. And so I packed a little, not everything, but I packed everything up. And then I went downstairs and I left that day. And then they told me later that the girl that sits next to me had COVID. And so it was just, and then they told me they furloughed our whole team, like our whole floor, everybody that was there, which was probably about, I don't know, 200 people. It was a lot of people.
Oh, wow.
And so
Yeah.
they furloughed everybody. And I could just see very clearly that my job was not going to come back because all the lockdown stuff was starting to get
Hmm.
talked about. And I knew that tourism was just going to take a massive hit. And I didn't think that there was going to be any industry left to go back to. And I had always worked in between other jobs. I had always worked service industry and tourism and things like that. And turns out I was correct. So not even 2 weeks later, they said, yeah, sorry, everybody's out of a job. But I went back to the drawing board, and this is how I actually teach people in the launch program to do this. But went back to the drawing board and went, all right, I need to teach myself a valuable skill because I have a business I have to pay
Hmm.
rent on, even though I can't open the business. Quite literally, the business was locked down. So I had to pay rent, but I couldn't
Oh,
take any
wow.
customers. And so I was like, what do I do about this right now? And I went back to the drawing board and said, all right, what skills are in demand right now? What skills do I think I could
Hmm.
learn? And then I ended up settling on a tech certification. And I got this. I studied really hard. I studied for 31 days. I got this tech certification, passed the exam, and then I started applying for jobs. And then within 45 days of me being furloughed, so that was March 17th, 2020, within 45 days, I had gotten this exam. I had taken this exam for $362, and I had gotten a job that
Yeah.
paid $70,000 remote
Wow.
4 day work week at a time when
Wow.
everybody else was losing their jobs. But it was very strategic because I just
Yes.
went, okay. And it said it required a college degree. It said a computer science degree required, which we'll get into
Mm.
later.
Yes.
But I was just like, okay, so none of this is true. Like none of these things are true. And so I just realized that not only was that the case, but also that other people could do the same thing. And so I started helping
Mm.
friends and family do the same thing. And then come to find out that a lot of degree requirements are actually not requirements. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But ended up I worked that job for about a year and a half, learned a ton from the team, and then I worked in AI machine learning up until earlier this year when Degree Free got
Okay.
too busy for me to continue working with that company. I loved them. It was a good team, good people building something really cool, and I enjoyed it. So I stayed for as
Yeah.
long as I could, but we're too busy, so I had to leave. But that experience I use because seeing up close how complex AI and machine learning tools are being used in Fortune 500 companies, and also being able to see how large companies are starting to do something called skills passports. They are not allocating internal talent by degrees. They do not care. They are not hiring based on degrees either. They are
Hmm.
hiring based on what combination of skills that you have and experience you have internally, and then what
Mm.
other people say about you as far as a team member. And so
Wow.
that's how these companies, massive companies, are actually developing their internal talent systems. And once I saw what was going on there, those are like the hard jobs, right? Those are the tough ones to like
Mm.
nail down. How are they
Hmm.
hiring? And once you
Yeah.
can figure out the complex ones like that, everything else is really easy to figure out. Everything else is easier. Everything else is
Yeah.
lower barrier to entry. And so once I cracked the code on those types of jobs, I was like, oh, so everything else is just downstream from that. And I started to just break it down. And that's how the launch program started.
Okay. My brain is like going 75 miles an hour because I was like, oh my gosh, I have so many things I want to talk to you about because you have such a unique perspective. One is like you being homeschooled yourself, and I totally agree with you. And I hope this is my kid saying this someday because I've always think outside the box, learn things for yourself. No one can take away something that you learn for yourself. And that really does apply. Charlotte Mason even said there's no education but self-education. If you
Mm,
are able to teach yourself something, you are going to be successful no matter what field, whatever thing. If that job goes away, because you don't know what's going to happen, nobody could predict COVID, right? And so many people were stuck because they're like, I don't know. This is the only thing I've ever done. I don't know how to do anything else. And it's people like you were the people that were successful. We're like, oh, okay, what else can I learn now? And there's so many more tools and resources that they're literally at your fingertips now that before I took around with my kids all the time. I'm like, you have it so easy. Back when I was in school, I had to go through like the card catalog system and get stacks of books to find one quote
yep.
for the one paper.
Yep.
It's so easy for you guys to learn now, everything.
No, it
Yeah.
is. That's so true. And and bigger than that too, like the real thing I want to hit on is it wasn't me. Cause I had people say, oh, like it was just you. And I said, no, it was the way that I did it. And anybody can do that. You just have to figure out what companies are hiring for, what they actually need. And one of the hardest things for people to unlearn, because culturally this has been something that's been going on for the past 40 years,
Oh, yeah.
is the degree requirements. People just do not understand the real scope. And you would probably be shocked at the amount of people. And actually, I love to do this. How many jobs do you think in our country require college degrees? I know you listen to my podcast
I was going to say,
regularly. How many did you think? Oh, thank you. But how many did you think required degrees
I would
before I
probably
was
say
talking to Jenny?
60%.
60%.
Yeah.
That's what people usually say. They say, oh, no, but 60% of the jobs require college degrees. Let me
Mhm.
just blow everybody's minds for a minute. So, a lot of people don't realize what the market looks like and also what the trend is either.
Mm.
So, so not only 60% of the employed US workforce is degree free as it is. So, it's quite literally the opposite,
Mm.
which you know now. Not only that, but we did the math at the degree free. Ryan and I did the math. Only 7.7% of all US jobs legally require college degrees. That's a
Wow.
tiny percentage of jobs. And also, none of those jobs, not all of them have positive ROI. Just because they require a degree does not mean that it makes the money back either. So that's something that
That's
people
a
need to
very
understand.
important
Like,
concept. Yes.
yeah, my estimation is about 2.1% of those jobs do not have positive ROI. That's why the group that benefits from buying a college degree is extremely narrow. It's very small. And the more degrees you buy, the harder that window gets to be positive. And so,
Mm.
anyway, but downstream from that, what people don't understand is, well, lots of jobs require them. And if there's not a legal degree requirement, as in someone would get sued if you did that job without a college degree, like Leonardo DiCaprio in Catch Me If You Can, where he pretends to be
Yes.
a doctor. That's what I'm talking about. You go into practice law in a state where you can't read the law and you pretend to be a lawyer. Like
Yeah.
you're Danny DeVito in Rain Man. Is it Rain Man? No, it's not Rain Man. What is that movie where Danny DeVito and
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Danny DeVito and what's his name? Matt Damon. And Matt Damon is the young lawyer. Danny DeVito is this paralegal, but he just knows everything. And so he tells Matt Damon what to do because Matt Damon is not, he just came from law school. He doesn't know anything about how to actually
That's
be a
so funny.
lawyer.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so other than that, it's such a, so not only that, so again, so 60% of the employed US workforce is
Wow.
degree free. And then of that, 7.7% of jobs actually legally require degrees. And the data on the publicly available data on this, and you can look this up. Indeed and ZipRecruiter are two of the
Yeah.
largest job boards in the country. They keep data on this. They keep data on how many of the job listings that they take in even mention a college degree. That means even say preferred. So this is not
Hmm.
saying required. This is saying preferred. On Indeed, it's now 17%. 17% of their
Wow.
job listings even mention a degree at all.
At all.
On
Wow.
ZipRecruiter, it's 14.5% and dropping. They Nobody is doing this anymore. And the fastest decline industries are finance, education, and healthcare, which are always people say, not in healthcare. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't know what's going on in healthcare. Like, like tell me you don't know what's going on
Wow.
in healthcare without telling me. People just think what they think is, I think what people think is they think there's an outsized amount of jobs. Like they think that there's just 18 million nurses. They think
Hmm.
that there's just 100 million teachers. They think that there's just so many people that require degrees for their jobs, but there's just not. So when I'm talking about jobs that require degrees, I'm talking about even extremely niche ones like audiologists. Yep, counted those. Like they're in there.
Wow.
Librarians, counted them, got them all. Like speech language pathologists, they're in there. I got them all.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
but it's one of those things that people just don't understand too. They think, oh, that's just been since COVID, but it wasn't. It was 2014 when this started. And the
Mm.
Burning Glass Institute is a research entity that's been tracking all this data. They've run 51 million jobs through their analysis, and they found that this has been happening since then because it was a response to the 2008 housing crisis. And basically, what happened is there were so
Yes.
many new college graduates. Companies were like, oh, we could just get these guys. We can just thin our hiring pool because everybody's unemployed. So there was
Yeah.
all these hiring, and someone's bright idea was, we'll just use the degree requirement to thin the amount of applicants.
Hmm.
No, huge problem, huge backfire, and it did not work. It was not effective. And this, what we see now, is a response to that initial change.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's not that these companies are seeing that the people that come with degrees aren't always the best employees or something like that that's affecting the trend.
It was intelligent.com just did a survey of 1,000 hiring managers and HR leaders. All of them had a bachelor's degree or higher, also, by the way. So it's good for the bias of the study. And they
Mm,
admitted 71% of those people admitted to firing recent Gen Z college graduates within the last
hmm
year that they had hired. 61% say that they were reluctant to hire from that demographic. A lot of
hmm
that, I believe, is the fault of the colleges. And not enough people are faulting the colleges for all the problems they cause.
hmm
They take 18-year-olds, they give them unrealistic expectations, they teach them a bunch of wild economic theories, and
Yep.
then they release them on the workforce. They do not prepare them for work, they do not teach them anything useful. That's not really their fault in a lot of ways because they don't guarantee jobs. I think colleges
Right.
should guarantee jobs if they're going to charge what they charge. And then
Hmm.
not only that, but a lot of it, and this is some research I just recently did, but it showed that the percentage professors who had even worked. So in STEM
Mm,
specifically, so
yeah.
like engineering type jobs, 50% of them had held a job at one point or another outside of academia.
Wow.
Those, a lot of those jobs they didn't hold until they were almost 45
Wow.
because they don't do it until they're consulting
Hmm.
after they have a master's degree or a PhD, which is a very they can't help
Yeah.
your kids get into the market. They literally
Right.
don't know what it looks like. They've never
Yeah.
been in it. And then when
Yeah.
you go to the rest of everybody else, when you go to everybody else, because most people are not buying STEM degrees, very few people are buying STEM degrees. 80% of people are buying not STEM degrees.
Mm,
And of those people, a lot of your professors have never held a job ever outside of academia. Never. Even part-time work, it said about 15% of them had ever held a job outside of academia, and that included
wow.
like a barista in college. So they have no idea. They literally cannot teach your child
Wow.
anything about work because they don't
Yeah.
know. Because academia is fake. It's not
Yep.
real. That's
No.
not, it's
I
like
wish it
somebody,
was because I'm one of those people. I would go back to college tomorrow. If someone was like, Julie, we'll pay for you to
well,
get like a
it's,
doctorate, I'd be there because I love learning. I could just sit there all day long. But it's not real
and
life.
it's But I'm not, yeah, I'm not saying, and there's actually nothing wrong with doing that. That I think is when people should do it. If you want to do
Mm,
it later, after you are secure, and that's
yeah,
when you should do it. I don't think anybody should be taking out student loans before they're 25. I don't think anyone should be going to college before they're 25 years old. Your brain is not fully formed. You have no idea if you need to be there. You have no
yeah.
idea if it's good investment. You have no idea if it makes actual sense for your life, and it boxes people in and it makes them
Oh
suffer as
yeah,
a result of their 17, 18-year-old choices. And that's
for
by
sure.
design. We want to force kids into decision before they're actually informed because otherwise they wouldn't do that. I think far
Mm,
less people would go, and it would be the people who it either makes sense for emotionally, that's just what they want to do, or it's going to benefit them in some very positive financial way because they need to do it in order for further their career.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sure a lot of people listening or their minds are completely blown because I, and I asked you to come on the podcast because I had a conversation with Jenny Urick from 1,000 Hours Outside. We're on this Utah rafting trip. So we're literally just lounging back in a raft all day long. And she brought up you and your work. And I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, she's so cool. But it's so just, I love to research. I love to understand this. I've always been involved in education. But then I've also have had my oldest two are now one graduated from college, one is a senior in college right now. So I have like firsthand experience of it. And their experience is so different than my experience was. And the things that I've been able to do in my life I like, man, I wish someone would have taught me this stuff. And I'm glad I have an education degree. That's what I'm passionate about. But like I run my own business. Like I've had to learn all of this through trial and error. Like this would have been really great information to know and finances and all these things. And so I'm trying to teach them these things as well because this is actually more important. But I've also seen their experience in the university. It's funny because I think a lot of homeschool moms, and maybe yours was like this too, I was like, you have to do this work. You have to read this book because you're going to need to know how to do this in college. And then they got there and they're like, yeah, we didn't read a book all year, mom. You had us read like The Count of Monte Cristo and Les Mis and these 100-page books in high school. And like we get to college and we haven't read anything all year. And I was shocked. I was like, wait, what?
There was a New York Times piece recently about how they're like, oh, college graduates can't read. And I said, yeah,
Yes, I
that's
saw that.
not, that makes sense because the people teaching them are, I'm sorry. It's just the people who are pulled into, I think, unfortunately, pulled into the university system are people who just don't want to exit and go to the real world. And so because of that, you just get people who are, I call them Peter Pan professors, but they just don't want to grow up. And the longer they're there, they're rewarded for not really being good at their job. And they're rewarded for just
Mm-hmm.
not rocking the boat and not really pushing
Mm-hmm.
anything and just posting. And honestly, the longer you're there in the environment where you're not really rewarded for being extraordinary, they just get fairly lazy because that's just how the
Mm-hmm.
system is designed. They get really complacent. And this sounds really judgmental, I realize, but when you are charging what they are charging in bankruptcy exempt loans to minors, someone has to be that judgmental about how poor you're doing, like about how poor the product is that you're selling to these kids. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how we have to reframe it. And that's why I say buying a college degree, because it is for many people, without them realizing it, the most expensive purchase they'll ever make. Because if they make it,
Mm-hmm.
they also might not be able to buy a house. And that's something that
Mm-hmm.
people are just not, it's just not clicking for people. That's what's at stake because the NCES data on this says that the total cost in lost wages and interest and tuition is well over $500,000. And then people are going,
Wow.
oh, why can't college graduates buy houses? And I'm like, because they bought a bachelor's degree. And
Mm-hmm.
that was
Yep.
their $500,000 shot. Like they don't
Yep.
have another one
So you're
because now they're
saying
handicapped.
most degrees on average are 500,000 now?
Yeah, a bachelor's degree. That's because of a variety of factors, but yeah, on
Wow.
average, total lifetime cost, yeah. And then you hear it now, people say, oh, yeah, no, there's a housing crisis. And there is, right? We've got regulatory problems where we're overregulating, so there's not enough housing. A huge reason why people can't buy homes is because they bought degrees and tuition doubles every 9 years. It
Mhm.
doubles. The
Yeah.
amount that you're paying for a college degree doubles every 9 years. It does not keep pace with inflation at all.
Oh, no.
And that's because of incentives. The colleges have no incentive to be ethical, and in fact, the current system encourages them to charge kids as much as they can and to upsell them master's degrees they don't need and
Yep.
graduate programs that they don't need
Yep.
because if you stay on campus,
Yep.
you don't have to go into the workforce. So
Hmm.
you can just never face the
And you
reality
don't have
of
to
your
pay your
decisions.
loans. Yeah.
You don't have to pay your loans. It's the
Yeah.
only type of loan where you can
Hmm.
continue to amass debt and no one comes to collect until you're done
Because
spending
you're
and you
done.
just
Yep.
keep going. And
Yeah.
so it's a very slippery slope for a lot of people. And it's dangerous to let 17, 18-year-olds just walk into the top and fall down the entire mountain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I've seen this with so my one daughter that's a senior, she's studying neuroscience, and so she's involved in like lots of like mental health things on campus and does a lot of things with psych majors and different things like that. But she tells me, she's like, Mom, it's an epidemic, the mental health crisis on these college campuses, and the colleges aren't equipped to provide services. Like, just there's no counseling available. Like, you can go buy a counselor in town, but there's no, for what they're paying to go to this school, and they're collapsing. It's just, she tells me stories after stories of kids committing suicide, kids being put in the mental hospital, like her friends and stuff. They cannot handle the pressure of having to perform at this academic level at that age all the time, but also the fear of if I don't do well, I'm spending all this money or I'm spending my parents' money or
I think a lot of it is we have a couple misconceptions about this, and this is something I care about a lot too. Recently, I just saw, and it wasn't that long ago, and it's probably the most infuriating talk I've ever seen. It was Scott Galloway. He's a professor from
yeah.
and marketing professor from NYU. He talks a lot, and he gave this talk about how America is destroying young people's future, and almost every single problem that he cited could directly be linked back to the way that colleges are preying on 17 and 18-year-old kids.
Mm,
And he talks about like, the mental health crisis and stuff like that. And it was so interesting. I almost laughed when I was listening to him say these stats. I'm like, every single one of those is directly related to college. College
mm,
students commit suicide at a higher rate than other young adults. College students have more substance abuse issues than other young adults.
mhm.
And I'm talking like college students say that they are unhappy more than other
Yes,
young adults.
yes.
And it is directly tied to the fact, I think, that we send them off by themselves. They are with a bunch of strange kids, which I don't know why always people always think too, oh, this is for the socialization or whatever. Like, what? There is no natural element of
Yeah.
socialization to sending your child into debt to go be on a college campus in nasty dorms. They have
Yeah.
mold, they're cramped, they're
Oh,
gross, with a bunch of
uh,
other 18-year-olds. And then some professors who've never worked in their industry telling them what to do. What about that is like
mm.
socialization? And
Well,
then a lot of people will counter and
socialization
say,
according to like traditional K-12 school. It's the
yeah,
opposite
yeah,
of that
according to the
socialization. Yeah.
correct. And they say, oh, they're going to miss out on socialization. I'm like, what socialization? Like,
Right.
I went to college. I remember what that was like. I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't make friends on a college campus. I made friends at work because
Mhm.
that's where you make friends. You make friends in
Mhm.
real life. You make friends at your
Yes.
church. You make friends at
Right.
places you volunteer. You make friends at like outside
Activities and
activities,
hobbies and yeah.
real things.
Yeah.
And a lot of people. So the reason I talk about the professors and how removed they are from the actual professional circles is because one of the huge things that people always say is, oh, my kids won't have that professional network. I'm like, your kids aren't going to get a professional network from
No.
college. They'll get a professional unless your child is going to literally MIT. And not only are they going to MIT, but they're also like happen to be in a circle where they know a lot of people who are in startups, or they have a professor
Mm.
who's like a professor of practice who is quite literally still angel investing or advising at businesses. That is not going to be useful. The which is a very tiny fraction of a fraction. And I could see an argument for that. I can't see an argument for the price, but I can see an argument for that. The other would be that, oh, they're not going to meet a spouse. And I think parents need to know this, especially homeschool parents.
Yes.
0.74%, less than 1% of kids meet their spouse on a college campus. So
Really?
if you are sending your child into
Wow.
debt to get married,
Wow.
let me tell you right now, there is a less than 1% chance that will result in a spouse. So just
Wow.
so parents understand that. Because I think a lot of homeschool parents are
Yes.
under the impression that you go to
Yeah.
college to meet a spouse. That's not what happens anymore. They meet on
Mm.
apps. Like 75% of them meet
Yes.
on, and guess what? You don't have to send them into
To
debt
college
to
to
put
go
them
to
on an
that
app.
app.
Yeah.
That's a good point. It's a good trend.
Um,
And I think too, okay. So I'm so interested in what you're going to say on this because for homeschool parents especially, there is so much fear around if my child does not get into college, it means I have failed as a homeschool parent.
oh yeah.
I did not do my job. I remember the first talk I ever gave at a homeschool conference. I'm talking about Charlotte Mason using real books, providing your children this beautiful humanities education. And I'm like, okay, does anyone have any questions? And the first question was, yeah, this sounds really beautiful, but do you have any statistics on how many kids have been educated using this philosophy and how many of them got into college? And I was like, the data is probably somewhere. This has been around since the late 1800s, and so it's been used throughout the whole entire world. So I'm sure there's kids out there that we can find statistics, but I don't really know them. I'm like, how old is your child? 4.
Mhm.
And that was so eye-opening for me of the fear of if I do anything different than traditional public education, my kid will fail in life. And the ultimate determination of whether I succeeded in all the work I did was whether or not they can get into college. I hear it over and over again. So I would love if you have any thoughts on that.
I do.
Because
One of the
it's
biggest things.
suffocating to these poor moms. They feel like they can't try
Mhm.
anything different in their homeschool.
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on this. First, college is not education. Those words are not synonyms. They have
Mm,
never been. And it very much behooves parents who have exited the narrative. It is so
mm,
interesting to me. Will never not be interesting to me the fact that homeschool moms specifically, and I say moms because moms are the ones who homeschool.
yeah.
I know that because I had a homeschool mom, right? My dad wasn't the one that decided to
Yeah.
homeschool, so my mom did. And then my mom did all the labor to do that. My dad was very supportive and everything like that. But my mom did all
Mm,
the labor. She did all the heavy lifting on that, as most homeschool moms do. You have stood in the way of a massive system that is designed to take your children from you, tell them what the truth is, and then put them into the world as they see fit, not as you see fit. You have done the hardest thing already.
mm,
And one of the things is it's infuriating to me on behalf of homeschool moms because it's poisonous that you have been fed. And I want people to understand the scale of this. The college system in the United States, one of our largest exports is student loan debt as a country. You
wow.
are
Wow.
being marketed to by a system that is worth $848 billion. Your child
Wait,
has
say
a
that
half
again.
a million dollar, you are being
848 billion?
billion dollar with a B, yes.
Wow.
Yes, with a
Wow.
B.
Wow. I
Yes.
have chills,
And
like literally from that.
you Your child and homeschool parents, how many kids do you have? On average, I'd say I work with a
Yeah.
lot of homeschool
I have
families. I'd
5.
say on average, you guys, I was about to
Yeah.
say you have at least 4 kids.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you don't have four, you got three. Okay. No, I
Yeah.
don't know really any homeschool parents out here with 2 kids. Okay. Your kids have a $500,000 price tag walking around on their head.
Mm.
There's a bounty on them. And like when you understand that, if you view what's going on more, I think instead, and my family's in the military, 2 of my siblings were in, as a used car lot outside a military installation where they're waiting for 18-year-olds who just enlisted to come in and buy a red Dodge Charger. They'll take anything. They just want you to sign the loans. They don't care. They want you to not understand. They're worth so much to this industry, and they don't care what the outcome is. They don't care. And one of the biggest things too is that, and there's just so much here because I feel so strongly about this. My mom, I run degreefree.com.
Yeah.
I was running a $500,000 a year business when my mother was still telling me to go to school for business.
Mm.
Okay. My mom
Yeah.
was, oh, maybe you should just go back to college. I said, why?
Yeah.
Why would I do that? I could teach the class. The professor has never done what I've done,
Yeah.
and not in an arrogant way, just in a factual way.
Yeah.
Like the
Right.
professor has never done what I've done, which is out of nothing, build a business and employ people. And
Yep.
they've never done that. Why would I go learn business from somebody who's
Mm.
literally never done what I've done? And it's for her, I think the first time I said that to her, it broke her worldview a little bit, but it's very generational
Mm.
because the
Yes.
further we get away from where this all went wrong, which was 1965 when the government got involved in student loans, when you were in college, when my mom was in college, it was closer to the truth that if you
Mm.
went,
Mm-hmm.
you were more likely to be going for something that
Yes.
got you a license to do something. My mom was a nurse,
Mm.
so it made sense, and for a lot
I
of
was a
people, the
teacher, right?
closer you were, you had to.
Mm-hmm.
It made sense.
Yep.
But the further you get away, the more expensive it gets and the less necessary it gets. And
Mm.
so, and that's where people, that huge disconnect is. But the one thing, if I could say only one thing to homeschool moms about their kids, you already said no to the system. Do not, after all of this, if you have homeschooled your kid the whole way through, do not turn around and put them on the meat grinder that you spent
Mm.
12
Yeah.
years keeping them out of. It's crazy. And you can
Yeah.
undo everything that you did by doing something that is so difficult. Like those first, you did the hardest thing already. You already
Wow.
did it. And also, not only did you do the hardest thing, you are so well positioned as a homeschool mom to do the research, vet educational options. And I say educational options because college is not education. You, as a homeschool mom, are the best
Mm.
qualified to do that. You've been doing it for 12 years.
Yes.
12 years already, you've been doing it
Yeah.
for multiple kids with multiple different needs. You are an expert at vetting educational options. Find something better. It is not difficult. This is my job. My job is to find things
Mm.
that are better, cheaper, and faster than college. It is not a hard thing to do. It just takes time. And homeschool moms
Mm.
will put in time like nobody I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's
Yes.
the thing I
Yep.
wanted to say.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Can we stand up and cheer? I'm like, preach it, girl. Loud for the people.
I just hate that they've made people feel that way because
Oh, I
they
hate
do.
it
They want
too.
you
It
to
just
feel
breaks
like,
my heart.
and homeschoolers go to college at a higher rate than everybody else. And that's
Hmm.
because of social pressure. It's because
Yep.
you want to be able to outwardly show to other people that you didn't
I
fail.
did it. Yep.
I'll tell you, you
Hmm.
didn't fail. You succeeded. That's why your child doesn't have to buy a college degree because you did
Mm.
succeed. Like
Wow.
they're ready now. They're ready
Hmm.
now. And if you don't delay their start in the world by 4 years, they will be so far ahead of kids coming out of college. It's laughable. It's
Yes.
laughable.
No, it really is. And I
Yeah.
100% agree. My daughter that graduated, that her degree was in graphic design, and she works for me, and she does my podcast editing, my social media. She designs the actual books for my curriculum. She does all the design work for that. But in high school, at 15, she started her own photography business. Today's episode is brought to you by A Gentle Feast. A Gentle Feast offers a complete living books curriculum, an award-winning early reading program, and more tools to equip you to apply Charlotte Mason's timeless philosophy into your modern homeschool. Go to agentlefeast.com to check it out. Smooth and easy days are closer than you think. Do you know what she does now? She has her own photography business. I actually learned absolutely nothing that I'm using to make money now. I'm like, wow, I'm
Yeah.
so glad I paid all that money because none of that is useful. And I don't know what my daughter is majoring in neuroscience will end up doing. I think she's more research based, so that might be helpful for kind of academic research stuff. But I see exactly what you're saying. And it was like, if she would have just been able to grow that photography business out of high school, all the stuff she
Yes.
learned for graphic design, she learned online, taking free classes, doing some paid courses by people who actually use graphic design to earn money in their businesses and edit their own podcasts and do, tubers and things like that. Like on YouTube, you can pretty much learn how to do most skills these
YouTube
days.
University.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
where I go every
But
time
it's
I don't know how to do something in my business. I'm like, ooh, YouTube.
Yep. But it's even more actionable than this. So let's do something super esoteric, okay? Let's
Okay.
do, for instance, I just had a young man come through not too long ago, and he ended with a cloud computing architect and
Oh, that's so
security.
cool.
So cybersecurity, cloud architect.
This is
So
perfect because this is
cloud
what my son
architecture.
wants to do. So go ahead, tell me.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So one of the biggest things that people don't realize is a lot of the tech, and this is one of those things. If your child is interested in computer science, do not send them to college. Do not do that. I don't care. But my, no, I'm talking to you, whoever that is. That if you're like, oh, but
Yeah.
mom, no, no, no. Do not send them to college. What you need to do is you need to get them to build a portfolio on GitHub and get them to
Mm-hmm.
solve LEET code. Two things.
Okay.
If your child wants to go into cybersecurity, you are going to go and you are going to look up jobs in cybersecurity that they would be interested in getting. A cybersecurity analyst for in the financial industry. So for a bank, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to look up several job listings for that, and you're going to look up what cybersecurity certification they're looking for. So if they're looking for CompTIA Plus, Network Plus, Security Plus, you're going to go tell them to get that. Why? Because it costs less than $500, and a
Yep.
homeschool kid can get it in 3 months. I'm not
Wow.
kidding. A 16-year-old homeschool child can get that in six
And
months.
it's high
It's
school
not hard,
credit, moms. High school
and
credit.
it's high school
Yeah.
credit. And
Yep.
it's like, just do that now. And your child,
Mm,
I'm not kidding you, if you devote to doing this for 1 year, if your child is 17 years old and you take this approach for 1 year, your child will be career ready and more prepared than 23-year-olds coming out of college.
yep,
And not
absolutely.
only that, but the issue that a lot of college graduates are facing is they're coming out and they're very dissatisfied with the entry level wage because that's the market value wage.
Yep.
It's the same as when they went into college.
Yeah.
But the difference is now they're carrying
It. Yep.
$150,000 worth of debt. And so they're literally not able to take entry level work, and your child will be. And they
Mm,
will pick your child every single time. Every single time. Like,
wow.
it's not close. I just saw Replit is an AI coding tool that's being used a lot now. Basically, it's one of the things. So when Mark Zuckerberg was talking about replacing coders and Meta the other day, what
Mm,
he's talking about is using agents. So Replit is an AI agent builder. And I should almost read you this tweet. But it was the tweet of one of the head engineers from Replit itself. And the CEO tweeted out that they don't care anymore about credentials. What they care about is they care. I'm going to read this tweet to you because it's that
yeah.
important. And sorry, not to be scrolling, but I think this is very important for people to understand what the actual market that they're going into. This is from
Mm,
Abjad Masad. He's one of the senior developers on Replit, on the Replit itself. And the Replit CEO said, we don't care about professional coders anymore. What he's talking about is they don't care about credentials. They do not care at all. And this Amjad guy said, this went viral yesterday. A lot of people were offended, but we don't care about credentials. I was the only CS on the Replit founding team. The rest were dropouts. He's the
wow.
only one.
Wow.
And then if you look at the cutting edge of technology now, you have Sam Altman of OpenAI. Sam Altman doesn't have a college degree. Chris Olah, if you look up Oxford right now, the head of research in AI safety, Chris Olah does not have a college degree. Chris Olah doesn't have a bachelor's degree. He's a researcher. His job is to go do imaginary research about complex mathematics and technology. No college degree. He didn't have to buy one
Wow.
because we
Yeah.
live in the internet age. Your children do not have to buy college degrees to learn linear algebra. They do not have to buy college degrees to work in cloud computing. What they have to understand is they have to understand how hardware interacts with each other. And I think we're very close to seeing too. And we just saw it the other day on another thing that happened on X was Elon Musk said, if you're a coder, send us your portfolio. He send us your code. And he said, I don't
Mm,
care if where you went to school or if you did it all. And he means it.
wow.
And we're getting very close to a future where our engineers, our developers, and it's already like this. We're actually about 50%, it's a little over 50% of people who work and are building all of this technology are degree free. And then
Wow.
it's just happening to at it's happening to 500. The federal government a few years ago opened up 500,000 cybersecurity jobs and just removed the degree requirements on all of them.
Wow.
And for people who are like, well, not federal and state jobs, as of yesterday or as of this morning, Massachusetts just became the 23rd state in the country to remove degree requirements from almost all of their state jobs.
Are you
So
serious?
it's yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, and the most
That's
aggressive, my
crazy.
favorite, was Pennsylvania. Actually, Pennsylvania went through and was like, there's a lot of jobs in here that don't legally require degrees. And they removed
Mm.
degrees. And I said this on Jenny Arich's podcast, but the number of state jobs that opened up after they did that was 92%. So basically spot on
Wow.
with our research to show that
Wow.
was the number. Yeah.
Okay, so my brain again is going. I love this conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk. This is so important because I don't think parents fully grasp what is happening in the world. They're still in the mindset of their own education, like you're saying. It was just ingrained in us. This is what you do. You go to school like this. This is the only way to be successful. And I'm glad I went to college. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm the first in my family to go to college. I am proud of that. I would not have what I have today. I don't think if I did not have my education degree. I'm very proud of it. But this is not 1990s anymore. Like it's vastly different. And I can't remember. I think it was Dell Technologies came out with a thing that by like 2030, 85% of the jobs that will be available don't actually exist today.
Yes.
Have you seen this?
Yes.
Okay. And
That's
this,
one of the
yeah,
things like the BLS, where I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast too, but this is a huge thing that homeschool parents especially can really do. But the schools, especially the public schools, they're already kneecapped. Like anybody that's
yeah.
going to public school and even the private schools. So basically what's happening is at the public school level, they're designed to sell student loans. K through 12 public schools, government
Mm,
schools are designed to sell student loans. That's what they are. They're funnels. They just funnel all
absolutely.
these leads and then whatever sticks because right now 60% of high school seniors will apply and go to college. And
Okay.
so even though that is not who's going to actually end up graduating and that's
Yeah.
not going to end up
Mhm.
who's benefiting actually from doing that, it's just the amount of people that go. And so what parents need to understand is that they're very limited. So the government only says that there's 867 jobs. Okay. That's how many are in the
Wow.
Bureau of Labor Statistics. That is not accurate. So there's
No.
867. Schools can only think past the end of their hand, and so they can only teach about 30. If your
Hmm.
child isn't getting a 4.0, then they're just immediately going to say, "Oh, let's take a personality test. Oh, look, you like to work with your hands. Okay, go be a
Hmm.
plumber or an electrician."
Yeah.
That's all they got. They got the
Yeah.
college, trades, of the military. They have nothing else. And even the trades, they'll just send you to trade school, not into an apprenticeship. They're going to send you to trade
Mm.
school because that's still student loan debt, and that's the goal
Yep.
is just to get you into this funnel. Now, past that, I remember looking at that number and going, that's not accurate. That's not right. And sure enough, we went through and did our own research. And the more accurate number, and there's a really wide range here, but the more accurate number of the amount of jobs in our country is 31, so 3,100 to about 6,000. And that's because every year we add between 500 and 700 new jobs.
Yeah. And
That's
some go
exactly what
away
you're
that
talking about. Yes.
are being
And so
replaced,
when you
right? Yeah.
see, yeah, all these fear headlines about all these jobs are going to require it, no, they won't. No, they won't. I'm telling you, there's an $848 billion lobby behind that because they are terrified of their declining enrollment. They're
Mm.
terrified that they can't keep, because they have no intention of keeping up. They're not going to teach
Yeah.
your kids anything useful. They're not going to change. They're just going to continue jacking up the price and hoping that a lot of people are uninformed enough to keep paying it
Mm.
for as long as they can. And that's what's going to happen. Your kids are going to be at the receiving end of something that is subpar, takes way too long. It's going to slow them down. That's the biggest thing. Now, it's
Mm.
not even the price so much. It's really expensive,
Yes.
but it's the time that they're going to lose.
Hmm.
It's just a giant time suck at the time where they're
Mm.
free and healthy and they're not married yet and they don't have
Mm.
kids yet and they're able to like move for jobs and take opportunities and say yes to things that if you have them in this institution that is burning their energy and burning their freest, healthiest years, that's the big robbery. It's not even the money. The money is bad, but it's the time that's
Time.
just gone.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And it's not just the time of the 4 years that they're at school, it's the 12 years leading up to that that they got.
And that's what Jenny
Yes.
said.
Yeah.
Yes. And where
It's like
now
they're
everything was
losing
to,
their whole childhood
yes, to
to
college prep.
prepare
Yeah.
them for college that they don't need to be prepared for because that's actually preparing them for nothing a lot of the
Because it's
time.
preparing them to
Yeah.
purchase. That's it. The
Mm,
culmination of K through 12 education is a purchase at 17 and 18 years old. It is not the
yes.
result afterwards because there's no
Mm,
guarantee. There's no follow through. We don't
mm,
track. This is one of the things that Recently, I had someone come to me and say, "Hey, this is somebody I think you need to meet because they're doing this education program, and currently 100% of the kids that come into this program are admitted to college." I'm like, that is a terrifying statistic because only
Yeah.
10% of them at max should be going. So how many of these
Mm,
kids are you putting into unnecessary student loan debt? That's an
wow.
unbelievable statistic. That's horrible, but that's what high school is optimized for. And
Hmm.
that's what people will brag about. They'll brag
Yeah.
about their
Oh,
college
yeah.
acceptance rate. And I'm like, all you're telling me right now is how many kids you're putting in debt. You're not telling me if it's going to benefit their lives, if it helps them get
Mm,
what they want out of life. You're not telling me, oh, this girl wants to be a stay-at-home mom, and because of that, this type of work is going to work for her, and she needs to get a degree because she legally needs one to do this, so she can have
hmm.
flexible work to be home with kids later.
Yeah.
Nope. Like, nope. We're just going accepted to college. Boom, done. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter what it
we
is.
have succeeded.
Success. And I'm like, that is not a success metric. That's a failure metric. And it's
Mm.
crazy because people don't view it that way, but it is. It is.
So what is the success metric?
Outcomes of their life. That's a harder
Mm,
thing to track, which is why nobody
it
does.
is. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Because
what would that
if
look
I had it
like
my way,
practically?
we would track through K through 12 education, we would track debt ratios, marriage, and length of
Mm,
marriage. And then we would probably track a career trajectory. So like where do they start and where do they end up? Like title would probably be more
hmm.
accurate and more helpful.
Yeah.
And then household wealth. Because one of the
Okay.
things you'll see too is people will talk about the earnings of college graduates,
Yeah.
also very deceptive. Why do they say earnings? Why isn't it wealth?
Mm,
Because they don't have wealth, they have debt.
they have debt.
That's why
Yeah.
millennials, so I'm the youngest millennial you'll get, I'm 30. And so they don't track our wealth. They don't track our wealth. Why? Because people my age have $85,000 worth on average of debt.
But if you keep working
That's the
long
reason.
enough, you can
Yeah,
retire and then you'll have wealth. Yeah.
theoretically, if you
Yeah,
ever
right.
retire.
Yeah. The
But
quality
that's
of
what I'm
life
saying
you
is
have in between then, that's a different story. But
and that's what it's when we first started the podcast, Ryan and I, one of the most interesting episodes we did was this ER doctor who had done a write-up of how long it would take him to catch up in earnings, an ER doctor, a physician, how
mm,
long it would take him to catch up to the
wow.
earnings of a UPS driver who started when they were 18. And it was
Wow.
27 years catch up. Obviously a
Wow.
doctor, a lot of debt, but also high
Hmm.
earning. And so tough.
Yes.
Like that's a tough one.
Right.
That's a tough one. And the UPS drivers make good money too. So
Oh, yeah, they
it's a
do.
tough
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what people are understanding is just if you just start your child at a $35,000 a year job and they grow and they start making about 50 a couple years in, which is very
Hmm.
plausible, very
Yeah.
reasonable
Yeah.
growth
Putting money in the
trajectory, like,
Roth. Yeah.
and your college graduates don't get there until 10 years. Like
Wow.
it's
Hmm.
they're just not going to catch up. They're just not going to catch up. It's just impossible. And it's why I see friends. So my youngest sister is actually, so my middle two siblings are both from the military. And then my youngest sister is a structural welder. So she and I went
That's
different roads. I
so
went tech, she went
cool.
trade.
That
She's very cool.
is
She's
very cool.
very cool. She's also very good at her job, but she's young. She's 23.
Wow.
She is, and this is something I talk about too. That's my a little bit off color opinion. But if you want grandchildren, don't send your kids to college. Don't
Mm,
do that because they'll put it off and they'll put it off
yeah.
because they have to because of
Yep.
finances. The fact that
Yeah.
people are ignoring that college graduates aren't having kids and they aren't buying houses, I'm like, oh, gee, what would keep somebody from buying
Mm,
houses and having children? Probably six figures of debt. That
yeah.
would keep people from doing that. My
Yeah.
youngest sister, though, she and her husband bringing in, they're out earning, both of them are out earning the median master's degree holder. And it's not hard to do that. And
Yeah.
she's 23 and she's no debt because she found an apprenticeship, not a trade school. They trained her, they paid her, all the risk was
Hmm.
gone. And now she's in a position where once you put in 5 years in a trade, you can go into QA, you can go into things that are not as manual, right?
Hmm.
You can just be quality control, you can be management, and you can just move up and you can move into more technical jobs. And so it's interesting to see to her progression and where she can go now with her skill set, right? Because
Mm,
with her skill set now, and as young as she could go to SpaceX, right?
that's so cool.
She could go to these big companies and go into QA and be paid really well, have great benefits. Like
Mm.
it's an interesting position that she's in. And it's interesting to see more than that, like the maturity and the way that her life has progressed. 'Cause you see so many people talking about like failure to launch and people stalling out
Oh,
and
yeah.
just like
Yeah.
frozen.
Because you're not in
And it's
reality,
hard.
right?
Yes, but
Yeah.
also it's just hard to see like the disconnect where people just don't want to acknowledge the common thread that I see there. Where I see a lot of people, I'll get messages from people that go, "Oh, can you work with my 28-year-old who just won't?" No, that's a different
Yeah.
group. Like they're
Yeah.
unwilling to move forward,
Yeah.
unfortunately, at that age, and so I can't really do anything about that. That's why we work with the younger ages
Mm.
because they're willing to learn and they're willing to
Hmm.
try stuff. Whereas you get to
Yeah.
about that age and it's hard to unteach that mindset at that point.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I got your workbook. I love it. I'm going to use it with my kids for sure. I have three teenagers, two young adults, and three teenagers. But just briefly as we wrap up here. So I think
Yeah.
hopefully this episode has given some people some new mindsets, some things to chew. It is very radical, but like you said, as homeschool moms, we're radical. So we're already like drank the Kool-Aid to some degree, pun intended. And so now it's okay. What are we really preparing our kids for? What do we really want? What is really success? If we're like, okay, college isn't all it's cut out to be. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of money. They're not getting the results. Now what?
Now what?
Because that's
That's
terrifying.
exactly like, and then you're out in the wilderness, which is why people choose
Yeah.
college because it's there. It's
Yeah, of
there.
course. Yeah.
And it seems less scary. It seems less scary. Yep. I get it.
Yes. So what do we do now?
What you're going to do now is you're going to sit down with your child and you already have you peeked ahead, I'm sure, so you already know what I'm going to say. But what you're going to do is you're going to sit your child down and do a couple different things. All of these we go over in the workbook, so this is big. But the first thing I want you to do is sit down and see how many jobs your child knows about. This is something I think will shock a lot of parents. Sometimes they know a decent amount. Homeschool kids seem to
Yeah.
know a little bit more than other people, which is good. I think that's a real testament to the creativity and out of the box thinking that homeschoolers tend to have, which is why they do so well when they're given the correct tools. But sit down with your kids and see how many they can name. Don't help them. See how many they actually
Mm,
know. Because I think a lot of people will be surprised it's a lot fewer than they realized. And once you understand, okay, it's like going to a restaurant and someone saying, all right, write down as many menu items as you can think of. And there's no menu, so you just write them down. You can only think of 10 dishes. That's all you can choose from because you only know 10. And that's the same thing with work. And it's the same with career paths. Because if you think about it, you can only walk through doors that you know exist. You can't walk through a door that you don't know is there. Nobody has the ability
mhm,
to do that. And once you have diagnosed essentially their level of vocational creativity, that's what we call it, then you go, okay, this is a good list. And then think through, and we teach this in the book. So that's the job limit inventory, how many jobs they know about. And then vocational creativity will help you to go through, okay, like here's this pen. How many, and I guess, sell me this pen, right? Everybody
yeah,
says that.
right.
But not that, the opposite of that, actually. It's, it's, all right, here's this pen. How many people did it take and who touched this to make this happen? And I use this a lot because I talk about the fact that there were CAD designers who went in and did this before anybody ever machined it. There were CNC programmers that programmed the machines. There were machinists who made the parts for the CNC machines
Mm,
itself to machine it. There were R&D polymer chemists that worked on this. There were process engineers that tweaked the process. Process engineers is not a legal license, by the way. You can be a process engineer without a college degree. They get paid very well. It's an interesting job. Manufacturing mostly. Check our local listings. But there's people that did prototype fabricators who made the first
mm,
version of this. There are people who tested it. There are people that work in marketing and engineering. There's people that run the CRMs that, and what is this? This is an Inkjoy at Papermate. There's people that work at Papermate who all their job all day is to just look at data and sales, make
mm,
charts to show other people and executives so they can make decision about quantity and marketing and seasonal items and
mhm,
colors and all these
mhm,
types of things. There are people that work in procurement whose job it is to just buy the raw materials or on the other end to buy the actual made pen in bulk from Walmart. And so every year, their only job all year for procurement is to negotiate how much they're going to pay Papermate to put these in a Walmart. That's
mhm,
it. That's their
mhm.
only job. That's all they do all year is prep for that one pitch. That's it. That's their whole job. And this is things that people just don't realize. There's the truckers that work around the thing, but
Mm,
there's supply chain analysts that work at the warehouses that store the pens when they come from production where they sit before they actually go to their end destination. There are people that work in maintenance, that work in automation on the thermostats, on the security of the warehouses where the pens are stored. Not even at the and the more you
yeah,
think and the
well,
deeper
yeah.
you think, and I use this, the example I use is I use like C.S. Lewis, further up and further in the last battle.
Yes.
People on TikTok didn't like that. I'm like, it's a very good example. There's always more. Always push your kids to think more. Okay, and what's past
Mhm,
that? That's job.
mhm.
That's work because even job is going to change, right? Work
Yeah,
now is a lot of people are going to be contract by 2030. They estimate half the workforce is going to be contract. So,
I 100%
especially
see
your
that. Yeah.
designers,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
like your UX UI designers for the site where they order the pens, just everything. There's people that font designers, their job is to make the font that's on the pen, all this kind of stuff. And then what you do is you take that and then you think through what your kids actually need out of life. This is such a big thing too, because the way that we pick work now is patently insane. We just go, what are you interested in?
Yes.
crazy question. Like, you're 17. You should be
Yeah.
interested in whatever pays your bills.
Right.
Like,
Where they're like,
you
I'm
know what I
interested
mean?
in Fortnite, girls, cars. Like,
Yeah.
what's a 17-year-old boy going
Like,
to say? Right.
if you went back 50 years and you asked a teenager, "Oh, what's your passion?" and then you told them to go get a job based on that, that's insane advice. It's crazy. It's still crazy, but our Overton window has shifted. And
Right.
so instead of doing that, because that's crazy, what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, like, where do you want to, and this is really easy for teenagers, where do you want to live? Is there somewhere you want to move? If you've recently moved from your old hometown, you guys live somewhere else, do they want to move back to be near friends and family? Is there somewhere that they just always wanted to, like, oh, they want to move to Florida and live near the ocean? Or where do you want to go? Oh, okay. I'm not for this because New York is gross, but hey, I want to
Yeah.
move to New York City. And they're like, just want to go live in a studio apartment with 5 other people in New York City. Okay, that's fine. That's great. Because knowing there's no, and this is so hard, and I shouldn't have said that judgment, but parents, like, don't correct
Yes.
them, don't help
Right.
them, don't like censor them. Just let them talk.
Yeah.
Just let them talk because everybody's trying to tell teenagers what to think and how to think it. And they hate it because we,
Oh,
we do
yes.
too. We hate it too. Nobody likes it and they like it least of all. And so just asking them, like, what do you want? And you can optimize this for next year, for 3 years down the line, for 10 years down the line. Ask them, okay, if you could work when you wanted to work, because we all have to work. I usually say that so they don't just say,
Mhm.
oh, I don't want to work.
Yeah.
Because they all jokingly say that because they don't want to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Then you say, when would you choose to work? What kind of schedule? 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off? And they go, wait, that's a thing. They didn't know that. 4 day work week. So that's going to give you like manufacturing
Mm-hmm.
industries, printing, healthcare, things like that.
Yeah.
And then, okay, great. So now you've got a schedule. Now you've got where they want to live. Huge, right? Huge things. Because sometimes location will dictate income too.
Oh,
Because if they want to live
absolutely.
somewhere expensive, they got to make
New
money.
York City.
If they want
Yeah.
to, yeah, if they want to live somewhere cheap, they got to make less money, which is great
Yeah.
because that can also change the amount of options that are open to them.
Mm.
And oh, I want to move back to this little small town. Okay, great. Now you don't have to make as much money because you can
Mm.
just your standard of living will adjust.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, what kind of work environment do you want to be in? Do you want to sit in the come to the same place and do the same job every day? Do you want to be able to go from site to site during the day, like a surveyor or real estate appraiser or something like that? Or an insurance adjuster that travels and looks at storm damage? Do you want to travel to the work sites that you do in other states, like a lineman or like somebody that's doing fiber optic, like consulting services in another state, things like that? Do you want to work remotely by yourself? That'd be like building information modeling or software development or QA or things like that. Once you've got that figured out, okay, now this picture's getting clearer, right? You know where they want to live, you
Mm-hmm.
know what type of schedule they want to work, downstream from that kind of work environment they want to be in. Do you want to work with mostly guys or mostly girls? Like, this is another
Yeah.
question. Like, things that can influence, like, seriously, the things that
Yeah.
can influence whether or not. And one of the things too, kind of find with girls, this is the biggest thing, but the having them really focus in on the one of the things that young teenage girls will say so often is just really want to help people.
Mm.
And that's not a bad thing. But a lot of times, the way that we tell them to do that is to go into low paying jobs that are not going to help them. And we then let them figure out the consequences of that 8 years later, and a lot of student debt later, and a bunch of crippled life decisions later, where they're now
Mm.
unable to do things they actually care about or help themselves because they have tried to help people by spending a lot of money to get into low paying jobs that help people that they
Yeah.
can't actually change the systems they're in. And so if your child ends up picking, if your girls end up picking, especially, and I've just noticed that they tend to do this more than
Yeah.
the young
Yeah.
men, make sure that they're shadowing. Like,
Mm.
they want to go work in a hospital, put them in a hospital, put
Mm-hmm.
them in the exact, have them volunteer, have them shadow, whatever. Because if they like it, awesome, full steam
Yeah.
ahead. If they
Yeah.
hate it, huge bullet dodged, huge bullet dodged.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
had a young lady I talked to a while back. This was years ago, and she was like, "I think I'm gonna go be an EMT." And I was like, "Okay, I've heard you talk a lot about the fact that you don't like blood, and that
Oh
your grandfather passed away in your home, and
my
you like
gosh.
fainted and couldn't deal with the fact that your grandfather had passed away in the same home that you lived in."
Wow.
And I was just like, you should not be an EMT. Because the work environment would cause a lot of
Oh,
depression and a lot of
right.
anxiety and a lot of
Right.
things that would mess with your mental health. And
Mm-hmm.
I see in a lot of, this is another reason I think that a lot of young women go into college, and women by degrees more than men do. And they
Yep.
go into college and then they go into fields that really impact their mental health because they end up going into social work, they go
Mm-hmm.
into healthcare, they go
Yep.
into teaching,
Childcare.
all of
Yep.
which are low paying
Mm-hmm.
fields typically with a lot of really tough situations,
Yes. Lots of
stress,
stress.
and I would say like low mobility as well because they can't really change jobs once they've done that. And so it's really difficult for them to change their situation after they've done that.
Mm,
And because of that, they just don't see a lot of ways to because it'd be
yeah.
tough if their teacher, and I say this from experience, I have a friend, a dear friend who's a speech language pathologist, and it's just really hard for her to see that she could change her life because she spent a very long time
A lot
to
of
get a
money. Yeah.
license to do her job,
Yeah.
but then her job like traps her into a lifestyle that
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't really like, in a work environment she doesn't really like, in a
Mm-hmm.
schedule she doesn't really like, in an
Yeah.
income she doesn't really like. And those
Yeah.
things really impact your
Oh,
happiness long
100%.
term.
Yeah. And your
And so
kids
instead of
and all that. Yeah.
when they have kids, it
Yep.
gets really rough.
Yep.
Yep. And so this is one of the things that's so you do all this, and if they know income, sometimes for the boys, for whatever reason, that seems to be easier for them. I don't know why. It's like I ask the same questions of all the kids
Yeah.
that come to the lunch program, but the girls really struggle with the money. Also, a lot of your kids, and hopefully
Well,
they'll
I
say
think
this,
that's
but
also a societal thing too, right? It's okay for
yeah.
men and boys to know numbers and money and
Hmm.
want to provide, and girls, you don't need to bother with that, sadly.
But I also, yeah, and I also think that's intentional too, because I think there's a lot of
Yep.
people that just want to sell them. We just
Hmm.
want to sell them degrees. Just buy.
Hmm.
Don't even think about the money. Don't even worry about that. Just go. You want to help people, and I see that as a yeah, we've just done this thing where we're so focused on helping other people that we forget to put our own oxygen masks on, and it results in a lot of dissatisfaction, a lot of unhappiness, a lot of really unnecessary stress that could just be
Wow.
avoided with a little bit of critical thought. Like the slightest bit of strategy would alleviate all of that. And shadowing, which I'm huge on, especially if it's a high risk career. Things that I view as high risk are things that cost a lot of money or take a lot of time to get into and don't necessarily
Hmm.
pay very much. So
Yeah.
those
And
2.1%
that's
of
such a
jobs that require a
blessing as
degree.
homeschool parents because we have the time for them to do this shadowing. And
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned apprenticeship. So how is that luck? Like, how do you find apprenticeships? Those even
Sure.
exist. I'm thinking of like Benjamin Franklin is all I can think of.
No, no, an apprenticeship looks totally different from the way that we think it does because it's totally, you think of a printing press for some
Yes,
reason. I
right.
don't know why. A printing press or welding. Those are the two things that people think of. So it's not like that anymore. But what I would not advise is the .gov apprenticeship. Like the government got involved in the
Mm.
apprenticeships and completely ruined everything as they always do. And so actually what you need to do is go outside of that. What you need to do when you're looking for an apprenticeship, you can do one of two things. You can look for people who are paying, typically more you're going to see on the job training. Every once in a
Hmm.
while, you'll see someone call it an apprenticeship and it's an in-house, usually regional company, sometimes tech, sometimes marketing, sometimes manufacturing, and you're looking for places that need to train people to do something specialized. And that is where you actually painting shops actually do a lot of apprenticeships because it's a hard job to learn. But
Yeah.
there's lots of different diverse things there too. There's like engraving, working at the mint, people that work at the mint,
Mhm.
or like state engraving. They do apprenticeships, and actually when they get a little further in their career, they make good money too. It's an interesting job. But more than that, what you're looking for is picking by needs. Once you figure out income, schedule, location, and work environment, then you go look for jobs that fit those things. Ideally, you're looking for the job that fits the top need. If it's location, if it's income, if it's schedule, you're looking for those things. And everybody has a different combination of those things. For most people, it's going to be income because they're young. They're trying to
Mm.
make whatever they need to do, like to go live, to go do what they want to do, no matter what that is. And
Hmm.
so, for instance, though, I did have a young lady, and this works for everybody. So I work with kids with all kinds of different needs. And so one young lady is diabetic, and so she's not able to do like a full schedule, and it's tough for her to maintain like a full 9 to 5. Just
Yeah, of
is.
course.
But finding shift work with breaks in the middle of the day and thinking through, okay, like what kinds of jobs actually fit this for me? Like what type of schedule is most important to her? Because she is able to live a different type of life because she has to. And so that's different. Or somebody who has like a physical limitation, right? Somebody who is an amputee or has some sort of paralysis. Like you look for things where the work environment matters. Like you can't be getting in and out of these like big tall, you can't be getting
Yeah,
in
right.
big tall trucks, or somebody that is prone to seizures like may not be able to work on a screen all day, things like that. Somebody who's really
Mhm.
heat sensitive, probably don't work outside. Like that's probably not good for you. Things like that.
Yeah.
But that way you can always customize for your kids no matter what their needs are. It works for literally everybody. I don't like there's nobody under the sun that
Mm.
this method doesn't work for. And the apprenticeship thing though, you can also something we call BYOA, which is build your own apprenticeship. And this is something that there's a
Mm.
unique gap in the market. There's a lot of baby boomers who own businesses that are going
Yes.
to disappear in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And that is because their kids don't want their businesses because their kids went to college and they
Yeah.
all want to go make $150,000 a week and pay off their $150,000 worth
Yeah.
of debt when they really should have just taken over the family business.
Yeah.
And so all these businesses are now at risk and they're all like, some of them are very good businesses and they have
Yeah.
long history. They cash flow well and
Hmm.
their owners did not plan for retirement and nobody wants to take over their business. So there's all this stranded value and knowledge. And right
Yes.
now, the only way to get it is to ask. So you go in to a drapery shop or a
A
locksmith
laundromat. One of
or
my cousins just bought several
a
laundromats from
laundromat.
baby that were
I
selling.
was gonna say a
Yeah.
laundromat is a good example of that. Things that don't seem super glamorous, but maybe interesting to your child, like a local jeweler, like a jeweler or a watchmaking store,
Hmm.
things like this. Jewelers actually have apprenticeships. A weird one I did a while back. I did a jeweler apprenticeship, which was super cool. But or had somebody go to one. I didn't do
Yeah.
one myself. I wanted to though. Every time I work with somebody, I'm like, I'll go with you.
It'd be
This
so
is
hard.
cool.
Like, I want to learn how to do that. That looks like fun.
Yeah, I had one girl go to a horology school. So watchmaking. How
Oh,
cool is that?
never heard of that.
Cool is that? Yeah,
Yeah.
and me neither. And I was like, I want to go with you. Girl, this is so cool. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. But anyway, and then what you do is you just go in and there's no rules about this. And this is why this is so cool for parents and should be so liberating. But you go in and you just offer to pay them, or even better, you just ask them to train your child and
Mm-hmm.
see if your child likes it. And then if your child does like it, yeah, just pay them a little bit monthly, pay them out
Mm-hmm.
of the proceeds of the
Yeah.
business
Yeah.
and do some sort of cash deal, do some sort of deal. And this is where you go to a lawyer, pay them a few $100s, work out the paperwork, do an
Okay.
audit of the business and stuff like that. Don't obviously buy a business without looking at the at the
Yeah, no.
finances and the taxes and all that stuff. But this is going to take work. But it's something that I don't think people understand that it's if you're going to spend the average spend is not the total all-in cost, but you're going to spend 104 to $156,000 on something. Why wouldn't you spend it on something that will guarantee your child work? Because college will not do that, but a
Hmm.
business would.
Yeah,
A business would. If it's
absolutely.
established and it already has existing clientele, that is a much more secure bet. I would take that bet every time. I would pick the business every time. Because even if it folds in 5 years, because this is all that only happens with new businesses. It doesn't happen with the type
With
of businesses
established
that
ones,
they
correct.
but if it folds in 5 years, let's say the worst case scenario, that's the stats. The SBA, the Small Business
Hmm.
Administration said new businesses fold in 5 years. Let's say when your child buys it, it's new. Okay, it's a new business now. But if it folds in 5 years, your child will probably still be more, they'll probably
Yeah,
still have more money and they will definitely have more experience because you have MBAs
absolutely.
coming out of Harvard
Oh,
that
yeah.
couldn't run a small business.
Nope.
They have no idea what's going on.
Nope.
And it will teach your child more than they would ever learn on a college campus. They're just gonna
100%.
learn way more. Yeah.
It's so
Yeah, I would take that
fascinating.
bet every time.
We went and did a tour of Harvard, and literally all the tour guide talked about the whole entire time was the famous people that dropped out of Harvard. She's so yeah, there's like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and Matt Damon. And she's like,
Michael
name all these
Dell.
people, the guy who invented the Polaroid camera. And I'm like, this isn't making people want to. We weren't on like a college tour. We were just like on a tourist tour. But it was so
Tour of
funny
Harvard.
because
Yeah.
it's like, why does everybody try to get in here?
It's yeah, it's one of those things where you just look and it's just so funny because it too is my big theory about that too is the way they screen at those things is they screen it's like a Costco white labeling things that they already know are good products. It's the exact same thing the colleges do. They just white label kids they already statistically said, yeah. And that's why when you look at who Harvard accepts to, the income bracket that they tend to
Oh,
accept from is very
right,
high. Why?
right.
Because statistically, if your family has more money, you're gonna have more access to money making opportunities. So only
Yes.
1% is like less than 1% of like average families that send their
Yeah.
kids to Harvard, actually their kids come out and become a rich adult. It's not far from a guarantee. They're pretty risky.
Yeah. No, this is so eye-opening, and I think it's so helpful for parents. I definitely encourage them, if you have teenagers, get the book. Do you recommend doing that like before they get to high school or like when they're like juniors and seniors and making some of these bigger decisions?
I say juniors and seniors is probably the perfect sweet spot. I sometimes feel like senior year is almost a little late for it because
Yeah, right.
everyone's panicking at that
Right,
point. I'd say
right.
that junior year is a good year to do it. But the conversations themselves, you can start having the soft versions of them now. There's no reason you can't start having them now. And a lot of it is the one I think that has the most value at this point is the vocational creativity. Just practice that with your kids. Have them think critically. And because that's how they're going to
Hmm.
find, oh, is that a job? They're going to notice it too. Like when they get into the actual workforce, they're gonna go, oh, could I do that? Is that a job? And
Hmm.
a lot of people miss that kind of stuff when they get into the workforce because they just don't know to look and they just don't know it's possible. And if you've implanted in your kids and taught them you don't need a degree and you don't need permission to do almost anything. And if you do, somebody will tell you, they'll stop you, right? But if
Right.
nobody ever stops you, you didn't need it. And that's the thing,
Mm.
is if there's an actual wall, you'll run into it. And then at that point, you'll go, is there any way around this wall? And most of the time, you're going to find the answers yes. Less than 10% of the time,
Right.
you're going to find the answers no. And at that point, you revisit it and you figure out how to solve it and if it's worth solving.
Yeah, that's so good. So I want to end with this quote from Charlotte Mason. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it's my favorite. It says, "The question is not how much does the youth know when he has finished his education, but how much does he care? And about how many of order of things does he care? In fact, how large is the room in which he finds his feet set? And therefore, how full is the life he has before him?"
I like that.
I love it so much because I see it with my kids when they were in high school and their public school peers. I saw it with them when they were in college and their friends. They don't care. Their love of learning has been completely vanquished from their
Extinguished.
life.
Yep.
And the room that their feet is in is not large. It's getting small, 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 small. And they,
At a time when it should be growing and expanding.
yes. Because you say college is not education, right?
It's an
So
educational product, just like
it's,
anything else.
and I love that ending. How full is the life he has before him? So that's where our goal is, right? To give them the full life.
Yes.
What's the best possible way? And I love how your program has them think through some of these things of what do you actually want and what kind of lifestyle do you, because that will affect the choices that you make. And it's so powerful for families. So how can they connect with you and get some of these resources?
Yeah, we actually just acquired our .com, so we are degreefree.com now. It says degreefree.co on the book, but we're .com. It's very exciting for our new year. So
Yes.
degreefree.com/book is going to be the degree free way, how to help your 16 and 20-year-old build the life they want. And then we do a podcast. So we've been doing our podcast for almost 3 years now. So that's degreefree.com/podcast. And then if you would like me to go through this whole process, do all of this with your kid, and also help them find jobs that fit their
Mm,
needs and do all of the heavy lifting and research for you, which I do, then
that's
you can
awesome.
apply to the launch program at degreefree.com/launch. And then basically we would just get you through to the very end of the process. So we do all the vetting, organization, finding job
Wow.
opportunities, all that type of thing.
That's amazing. That is such a gift. That's such a huge lift. It really is.
It's a lot, but it's very high impact.
Yes. Thank you so much. This has been such a delightful conversation. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you listening to all my numbers.
Oh, I love this. I could talk about this all night, girl. So, but I appreciate your time. So maybe I'll be back. So thank you again. Thanks for listening to today's episode of The Feast Life. And I hope you enjoyed my enlightening conversation with Hannah Maruyama. Let's recap some of the key takeaways. First of all, college doesn't necessarily equal success. Only 7.7% of U.S. jobs legally require a degree. Yet society pushes the narrative that higher education is mandatory for success. We need to think outside the system. Homeschooling parents already challenged the status quo. Extending that mindset to post-high school plans open doors to unique and viable opportunities. Number 3, the power of vocational creativity. Teach kids to think critically about the vast array of careers beyond the few options school presents. Number 4, build skills, not debt. Certifications, apprenticeships, and skill-based training often outperform degrees in terms of ROI and career readiness. And last but not least, redefine success. Focus on creating a full and meaningful life for your child, not just on meeting societal expectations like a college acceptance letter. As Charlotte Mason said, the question is not how much does the youth know when he has finished his education, but how much does he care and how full is the life he has before him. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Hey there, Julie Ross here. I just wanted to say thank you for listening to today's episode. If you like this show, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a positive review in iTunes. This really does help people learn about the podcast. And each month I will pick a winner to receive a free gift. Don't forget to check out all the free resources we created for you at thefeastlife.me. Thank you.